the Bumpy Man. So I've always been open to paranormal things. I recall several things as a child, but the older I get, the less I see, as adulthood and responsibilities have overtaken my ability to see things that I once did. I had a son in January of 2011. By 2013, when he was almost 2 years old, we moved out of my mother's house into our own apartment. It was kind of a rushed ordeal, as my mother and I butt heads a lot, and as soon as I had the money, I went to the first available opening. The apartment manager had actually asked me to hold on for an extra 2 weeks because, as she said, some girls were moving to Florida and left the place a mess and it needed cleaning up. She never asked for a credit check, any references, anything. It was just an, okay, I'll let you know as soon as the rental is up to par. I moved in probably a month after she said I could have the unit. Upon moving in, I had a strange but comforting feeling. I started out with nothing but a box of toys and a nice blow-up mattress for myself and my almost 2-year-old son to share. It was a 2-bedroom apartment, 1 bathroom, lots of closet space. Eventually we made it home, but one day my son was in the spare bedroom and started laughing. A hearty baby laugh that takes work to muster from any baby, really. I walk in and he is staring at a corner and acts as though he doesn't even see me in there. Then suddenly he stops. Anyone with a child knows this is a little odd. The child will normally look to the source of entertainment for more, but my son just stopped and toddled toward me as if told to do so. It seemed odd, but I dismissed it. Fast forward a few months, we've got our own beds, although I let him sleep in mine, and I awake one night to him belly laughing once again, full-on giggles in the darkness. Nothing but the moonlight through the sheer curtains, bouncing from my face onto his, since I'm the one facing the window, and he's looking over my shoulder into the darkness. A big smile is spread over his face as I say, "What's so funny, hun?" And he says, "The man," as he's still gazing over my shoulder. But then, his smile gets scared and serious, and he puts his tiny finger over his lips as though he's mimicking someone, and he says, "Shh." Needless to say, I did not go night-night that night. Days, weeks passed, and small incidents happened where he'd be laughing or talking about his friend. I started not worrying about it because to me it wasn't that big of a deal. He stopped being creepy at night. One day though, he was in what was supposed to be his room, just cracking up laughing once again. When he came into the living room, I asked him, "What's so funny in there, bud?" And he replied, "The man. He's funny, he tell me jokes. He not a monster, he tell me jokes. He nice, mama." I was like, oh, he's got an imaginary friend. Wonderful, whatever. This goes on another week or two until one day he's in his room having a full conversation. I don't recall what, I just remember hearing him chatting in there as if having an actual conversation and him repeating a word I knew he didn't know. Too big for an almost 2-year-old's vocabulary. He comes into the living room and I ask again, "Who are you talking to in there?" He says, "The man, mama." I knew I shouldn't ask, but I did, and I said, "What's the man look like?" And he replies, "Bumpy. He's bumpy, mom. Look like monster, but not a monster, mom. He nice. He tell me jokes. He nice." I'm sitting there like, okay, cool. This is totally an imaginary friend. All is fine. And that was that. A few days later, I wake up suddenly to a fight in the hallway. My next door neighbor had come home drunk and was banging her apartment door like a complete psycho. I had grown up rather comfortable in a town where literally locking your doors was optional, so for once, I went to the door to lock it, so this woman wouldn't accidentally open my door. And it was already locked. The door handle, the deadbolt, and the chain lock. I had never locked the deadbolt, let alone the chain lock. I was confused, but wrote it off as me being a tired mum. The next morning, bright and early, my son wakes me to, "Mama, the man saves us. He locked door from bad lady, mama." Again, I write it off, as he heard the commotion the night before, and credited his imaginary friend for my actions. Later that day, I had just gotten a carload of groceries, and I took the first few bags in and up the stairs, and I got a movie in for my son to occupy him, while I got the rest inside. I go out on maybe the 3rd or 4th trip, and a neighbor catches me. She's my age. I hadn't met her before, but she seems kind. She approaches me and introduces herself, then asks, "Maybe this isn't appropriate, but how much did you pay for that apartment?" I didn't exactly know the rules to how units were priced or what have you, so I just vaguely asked why, and she said, "Well, did they tell you what happened there?" And I was like, "No." She said she was waiting on some girls to move out who were going to Florida, but I trailed off. She says, "No, There was a dad and son who lived in there. They both had that genetic disease where you get bumps or polyps all over your skin. The son killed himself in the spare bedroom by overdosing. Nobody knew for days. They had all sorts of cleaning crews in there. It's a shame too, because he'd always tell my kids jokes and say, "See, I tell jokes. I'm not a monster." He was so sweet to my boys. He was so worried about scaring them, he'd always tell them jokes.